Alright guys, sorry this stream keeps disconnecting. Actually, I don't know if my mic was just on, but yeah. Sorry my stream keeps disconnecting, my internet will, and I just cannot keep a consistent signal going. Thank you to whoever is still watching my stream. I don't know who you are, but I appreciate you being present. And yeah, let us continue. So back to the student class for the third and hopefully last time. So since we passed in the ID and full name as parameters, we have to store them inside the class itself. So we'll say self.id is going to equal ID, and then self.fullName is going to be equal to full name. Besides those two variables, we're also going to need to keep a list of, maybe not a list, I'm thinking a dictionary that's going to have, and then an X or an A depending on if they were absent or present, or it could just be a Boolean like true for present, false for absent, something like that. So I'm thinking attendance, so self.attendance, and that should be equal to an empty dictionary, and this dictionary should remain empty, yeah. So we have one for attendance, we have the ID, the full name, and then for participation, I'm not entirely sure what we should do with that. Because as far as the output goes, what we need to submit is something like this, a class score sheet. And this is going to be, it's going to have the student's name, and then for every date that's specified above, it's going to be the number of messages that they sent to the class. And so I think to do that, we should, what should we do? How should we do this? I think that we could possibly, yeah, I think what we're going to do for that is similar to attendance. We're going to have a dictionary for each student, so self.participation, and it's going to be an empty dictionary also. And what this is going to be, what it's going to do is keep track of the date. So for example, it'll have the date as a string. It'll be like 03/25/2021, and then how do you do dictionaries? Does it go inside square brackets? Well, whatever, it's basically going to be the date, and then that's going to be the key, and then the variable with that key is going to be the number of messages that requested time constraints entered by the user. So to get that done, I think this is going to be all the things we need inside the init function. We can always add stuff later if we find a need to, but for now this should be good. So since we have this function done, I think the next thing we're going to do is create two functions, or not create two, we're going to have get ID, so let's do get underscore ID, and in here we're just going to return self.id, simple as that, because we want this to be private. And then we also want to get their first and last name, so let's do def get underscore first name, and in here we're going to return self.fullname.split. Isn't split a thing? Let me convert that to a string, dot by spaces, and then it'll be at index 0, I believe. Let me go ahead back to student list. So there's a space right here that's probably gonna cause some issues. So let me say full name. How do you trim white space? Okay, let's do this. If self.fullname, and then at the very first index is equal to a space, then we want self.fullname to be equal to self.fullname, square bracket, and then 1:. So that should just remove the space in the very beginning. if I'm not mistaken, which I very well may be, but I think that should be correct. So now that we've got that done, we have everything like that. So now, to get the first name, I think this should be it. So it's the full name, it splits it up into spaces, it gives us the first index. And then similarly to get the last name, I'm just going to copy that function, paste it here, get last name, and we will return index 3 because there's going to be 4 names. So those should be good. Let me think to see if there's anything else we should just take care of in here. So for attendance, what I'm thinking, so if a student is present, if a student's present, that means that their name shows up somewhere in here. Yes, it shows up here in index 0 before the comma for each of these types of files. And so when that is the case, I feel like everything I already did is kind of done badly. Like all these functions probably shouldn't be all inside of course, and I'm not using my student class yet. I feel like I have to redo a lot of things. And I'm also struggling with how I should format this, because what is a Python object or option parser? Is that a because I was looking into it online and it seems like kind of, you know how if you go to the terminal you can add commands after something? Well, I can't think of an example. Well, I mean, okay, so like if you use CD, like you can specify where you want to go. Like, is there anything in here? Whoops. Yes, like CD into attendance is a command associated with CD that CD uses. And I think that's what option parser is. But I also don't know for sure, because we never went over that in class, and I don't want to use it if I'm not supposed to. But I also don't want to not use it if I am supposed to. So I'm a little bit stuck on that. How should we get this done? Let's see. So maybe, I think to start things out, I'm just going to make a while loop. I'm struggling visualizing what I'm trying to. I'm going to have a menu. I'm going to drop a menu. So we'll just say show menu. We will create that function in a second. We'll say, let's go ahead and create that menu right now. So define show menu. And, whoops, come on. The print statements. So the first one's going to be, what is this, unreachable code? Yeah. Whatever, okay. Control X, there. So we're going to print, what should we print? The first thing we need is, wow, I am very lost. Very, very lost. We need the course ID, which we're already getting from the user. Let me comment these two things out for a second. So let me run the code. I'm just going to run, click run. So right now we are creating a course. The course gets an ID. It's set equal to the course ID, and when we get to this function, it basically stores all of the student names inside a dictionary, and this dictionary does something. It stores their ID number and then their first names via this one. But instead of this approach, I'd rather create a student object and then have those student objects inside of a list instead of a student's dict list. It's going to equal 2 empty square brackets. And here, what I'm going to do is, I'm already done, but I'm also going to say self.append student, and I'm going to pass in the ID number and then the full name. So the ID number is going to be row 0. Yeah, row 0. So row 0 like it parameter is going to be row 1. Just like that. I think. Yes. Probably. Hopefully. I also want to ignore the first line inside of this file. So the first line is just kind of like that. So I'm going to have a count variable set equal to 0. And then after, if count equals 0 plus equals 1, and we will break. So now it should skip the first iteration and not have student ID arrow student, I believe. So let's stop this execution. Let's run it one more time. Oh, I forgot the word not, if not 0. So let's run that. And now we still get this. Fantastic. That is definitely not what we wanted, but it's okay. You're in class, so you'll join after 15 minutes if I'm still live. Hopefully I will be, homie, assuming my internet does not. So how should we